older people still speak and still identify with. Okinawa has a lot of cultural influences that are outside of Japan because it was a trading post. So it's an island, right? It's about 1,000 miles south of Japan mainland. So it sits kind of in the middle between China, Korea, Taiwan, Japan. So none of these places way back when, A, it was a long boat ride, and B, they didn't really like each other. So I don't want to take my boat to your place and gather up stuff, and you don't want to bring your boat to my place because we might kill each other. So they used Okinawa as a trading post. Everybody could get to it reasonably easy. So it has a ton of cultural influences from all over the place. So it's not just Japanese, which was our first really big kind of eye-opening moment. And they really do view themselves as, now we're slightly different than the Japanese mainland. So they call it the mainland. They really think of themselves as a quieter, more relaxed pace of life, and they identify with Hawaii actually. A lot of Hawaiian shirts, and that building over there, it's been built for the last 5 years, probably be another 5 years. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. That kind of attitude. It'll get built when it's time. So that was an interesting side effect of this. So if you work your way up the line, our instructor Mark Burzak, and I just wrote the dates they were born. We can get into more information about our current lineage, but I wanted to get into the Japanese lineage. So he was taught by a man named Wolfgang Maneki. Wolfgang Maneki got his black belt by a man named Hideo Ochi. Hideo Ochi was a Japanese mainland very, very prominent fighter and kata. He won the world championships in, does it say? Before that, he was European champion in 1971-72. He was also the Japanese champion before that. He's still alive. He lives in Germany. He went to Germany in 1970. He was sent there, actually, you know what? Let's talk about it anyways. He went there as a way of spreading karate across the world. And he took over from another man that you may have heard of called Kanazawa. And if you've heard of Kanazawa, he's the one that we use all of his information for our katas. If you're looking at the Heian katas online, that's who we use as a reference point. So he's our direct lineage, and he's still alive. And my next trip that I'm hoping to plan is to Germany to go and meet him and see how, supposedly he's a very interesting man. He speaks English well enough, speaks German obviously, speaks Japanese and probably some other languages. He does seminars all over the world, and he's very highly regarded. He's an 8th degree, and he is the highest ranking tester in Europe. So if you want to get tested for 4th, 5th, 6th degree, that's who you call. And then you phone him, you fly him to wherever you are, and you do your test, right? That's how that works. He was sent to Germany from Japan by a man named Nakayama. Nakayama took over for Funakoshi. Everybody knows Funakoshi, do we? Shotokan Karate is Gishin Funakoshi. His mandate was to spread Japanese karate across the world as far as possible. So he asked Nakayama, because by this time Funakoshi was a pretty old man, to take over and try to spread karate around the world. And so he sent out his highest ranking representatives, one to America, one to Canada, one to Australia, one to Germany, to look after Europe and really kind of push that envelope of spreading karate worldwide. That was their goal. And Nakayama is very famous for, he was a great martial artist too, but this is where he's most famous, is for spreading karate across the world. Before him, in 1868, Gishin Funakoshi was born. He was an Okinawan man. He was not a mainland Japanese man. He was born in Okinawa, trained exclusively in Okinawa under the masters. And he had the opportunity in 1922 to go to mainland Japan and do a demonstration for the National Sports Authority. So the government was there, the army was there, the school system was there. It was a very big political entity to show this karate. Because before that, mainland Japan didn't really have karate as we know it. They had their traditional martial arts that they did, the sword, samurai obviously. Bow and arrow was very big. They used to have archery from horses. That was one of their biggest things. They had kendo, of course, and all sorts of martial arts like that. But they didn't really have a specific hand-to-hand punch, fight, kick like what it is today. So he went there and did this demonstration, and the government, the people that were, the powers that be, were watching this and went, okay, this is good. We can use this. So they eventually adopted it into their school system. And since did you have to, Renshi, did you have to do, was the karate available at your school in elementary?
No,
elementary, high school? High school. So they adopted it into the school system where it became part of, you know, regular class. You could go to gym, you could go to basketball, you could go to karate, which, I mean, that's going to spread the word pretty fast, right? If everyone has access to it like that. This was Funakoshi's dream to put it in there. But before it was his dream, it was the man called Anko Itosu. Itosu is the person that I went to Okinawa to find out about. He is, by most people, most historians, he is who they consider to be the father of karate. He's the one who organized it into a way of producing it so that everyone in the room can practice it and get it. Before him, there's obviously a lot of masters, but before him, it was much quieter, much more of a, I'm going to teach my little brother, he's going to teach his little brother, we're going to teach our sons, our karate is ours, yours is yours, yours is yours, it's not the same. It's our family tradition, our family heritage. Does that make sense? Itosu is credited with having the vision of, you know what, this is good, this is useful, everybody should do this, everybody can benefit from this. We shouldn't have to hide this or have it just be ours or just be yours or just be theirs. Now, something had to happen for that in order to work though, because before that, before Itosu really got it organized, on the island of Okinawa, it had been invaded many times by many different cultures and suppressed. It's not a very big island, not very many people. It was easy to take over, and so the Chinese did it once, the Japanese did it several times. Different clans from different places came, said this is our island. The next clan would come, kick them out, say this is our island. So as it went along, Okinawan martial arts was banned. They were not allowed to use weapons for fear of an uprising, right? If all of my population is armed, and there's only, you know, 100 of me suppressing them, eventually they're just going to come and kill me. So they banned all weapons and they banned all practice of martial arts, which is where this whole idea of we keep our martial arts secret. We practice at night. We practice where no one can see us. That's why it was, sorry? So we actually went and toured a lot of the places where they practice, and actually a lot of where they practice was in graveyards. Which sounds weird, but if you go there in the middle of the night, chances are there's not a lot of people around, right? So this is where a lot of their practicing, and if you read some of the old legends, you see a lot of the martial arts got taught in graveyards. So I'll just read Itosu's because he's the man that I really wanted to find out about. Born 1831 till 1915, Okinawans are renowned for living long lives. In fact, they have the oldest population in the world. They say that, they credit that with being relaxed, having karate as building strong bodies, and being a not too fast-paced culture. Although if you drive there, that is not true. He's considered by many to be the father of modern karate. In 1901, he was instrumental in getting karate introduced into the Okinawa school system. In 1905, Itosu was a part-time teacher at the Okinawa's first junior prefecture high school. It's there that he developed the systematic method of teaching karate. Before that, it was, okay, what do you do if someone grabs your hair? I don't know, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. Okay, what if someone kicks you in the groin? Okay, we could do this, we could do that. Well, like Itosu said, let's stop just the what ifs and let's put it into a plan. Let's develop katas. Let's use what we have all already known and put it into a plan so that everyone in the room can benefit from this instead of just 2 or 3 people. He created and introduced the Pinan forms, which are known as the Heian forms in the mainland Japanese. Obviously, Funakoshi changed them a little bit, but as learning steps for students. In 1908, Itosu wrote the influential 10 precepts of karate, which is the other page that you got, and we'll look at that in a few seconds. Reaching beyond Okinawa to Japan, Itosu's style of karate, Shorin-ryu, came to be known as Itosu-ryu for a while in recognition of his skill and mastery. So it was his dream to take karate not only into the school system in Okinawa, but into the mainland of Japan. Unfortunately, he was, in 1915, he was 80 years old already. He did not have the chance to do it. By the time he got, by the time it got introduced into mainland Japan, he was already dead, which is a shame because that was his dream, right? The last 2 people on the list, Sokan Matsumura and Sakagawa Kanga, these 2 guys were kind of the people who cataloged. They were recognized as the first people who were able to kind of start putting things together after the ban was lifted. So in 1868, the Meiji Restoration, which is a nice way of saying we're taking over your island again. The restoration of us. So the mainland Japan took over the king. The king was not killed, which I thought you would, right? I thought you just, when you go somewhere, you boom, dead, now it's my island. He was actually brought to Japan and he lived out the rest of his life in a very nice palatial estate, as I guess kings do when, you know, your island is annexed. So when they, in 1968, they took the island back and they lifted the ban. The Meiji Restoration was the start of Western dress. They started to get rid of the top knot. They started to get rid of the kimonos. You didn't wear that anymore. It wasn't socially acceptable. A lot of the old people still wanted to wear their swords, felt it was disrespectful to go to the Western style dress. But at that point, the Japanese government, the mainland government, said we have to join the rest of civilization. We have to join the French and the English and the Americans. Everybody's moving forward and we're stuck in this old world. We have to move forward. So it's a big fight between those 2 groups for a long time. But they lifted the ban on martial arts. And when they did, these old masters who had been learning sort of in the graveyards and from their fathers and places where it was still a secret started to come out of the woodwork. And the first one who's really of note is Kanga. He studied boxing, bullfighting. He traveled to China. Most all of these people who are famous are all rich. They're all nobility. So they were immune from some of the laws, of course, and they had the ability to travel. They could go to China. They could go to these places and practice their different martial arts. They were often 3rd sons. First son is going to be the inheritor of the throne or the nobility, right? Second son gets sent to schooling, maybe priest, maybe this, maybe that. Third son, go. Do whatever you want. Don't be in my way, right? So they had lots of money and lots of free time. So they could do things like this. So Kanga went to China, it says in 1806. So this is hundreds of years ago. He started teaching the fighting art in the city of Shuri. That was called, he called it Todi Sakagawa. Sakagawa was his name. Todi meant China hand. Todi, the characters for karate used to say Todi, China hand. And when it got adopted by the Japanese people, they said, wow, we're not going to call it China hand. This is Japan, right? We're going to call it empty hand, because the character for China hand was almost identical to empty. So they said empty hand, karate, no weapons, makes sense. And that's when they changed it. This is the first reference to the characters that we know as kara empty and te hand. He is credited with being the first man to start cataloging techniques and openly teaching to the public, whereby students, if Renchi Chris had a son and he said, I want my son to learn, you know, how to be a good, strong man, good, strong moral character, and a solid fighter, I'm going to send him to Kanga, because I know Kanga is a great teacher. Before that, you couldn't do that. You taught what you knew, and you didn't go outside of your lines, because the person who got caught with learning karate or carrying a sword, you're in big trouble. It was banned, it was outlawed. He went on to teach Matsumura, who was in the same boat, one of those guys who just loved to train and was allowed well, it says he started training at a very young age, continued his whole life. He eventually became the chief martial arts instructor and bodyguard for the Okinawan king. So he moved his way up. He subsequently served in this capacity for the last 2 Okinawan kings before the Meiji Restoration. Matsumura traveled on behalf of the royal government to the Fuzhou province in China and Satsuma. Say it again? That's what I said. On mainland Japan. So he exposed himself to a lot of different martial arts. He studied Junfan in China, as well as other martial arts, and brought what he learned back to Okinawa. So there's a heavy Chinese martial arts influence in Okinawan karate, as well as Matsumura is credited with passing on what is now called Shorin-ryu karate, which is what we went to Japan to study.
Yep. Guys, if anybody's parked in front of Valentine's next door, you're gonna get towed.
Matsumura is credited with passing on what is now the Shorin-ryu kata, which trickled down to us, known as Naihanshi. In Shotokan, it's called Teki. Pasai, which we know as Basai. Seisan, which we don't do, but we do a similar one. Shinto Gojishiho. Kyushanku, which we know as Kanku, Kankudai, and Kankusho, and Hakatsuru, which I don't know at all. The last kata contains the elements of the Fujian white crane system, which is probably why we don't know. So obviously he was a very well-rounded martial artist. So the whole point of this little speech was to see, the whole point of our trip and this little speech is to see where we came from. And it was very interesting to listen to go on these historical tours, but also to listen to Uema Sensei. The man we went to meet was named Uema Sensei. Uema is his name. Sensei obviously means sensei. And hear him, because we got a chance to sit and talk with him now and then, hear him talk about, because his father learned from these masters. His father learned from Chojin Chibana, who was a direct student of Itosu. So on the same lineage as Gishin Funakashi, this man was one step removed from Anku Itosu, which was really interesting. So he had some, stories and theories of his own. And I asked him, why do you think that the Okinawan karate and the Japanese karate is quite different? You'll see in a few minutes some of the things that he taught us and that we did. It is fairly different in the way they stand, in the way they move, in the way their body position is. And we got into a little conversation about that. Unfortunately, of course, language barrier being what it is, you can't ask the in-depth questions you might like to, but some of his answers, some of his thoughts were, when Funakashi went to mainland Japan, you have to remember, Okinawans didn't like Japanese mainlanders all that much, because they came there and took their island, right? But they were part of the country now, and it was part of the new world, and so you make it work. So Funakoshi went to Japan to show mainland this style of karate, and they said, well, that's nice, but we don't want to do Okinawan karate, we want to do Japanese karate. So from Uema's point of view, he said, I think Funakoshi was politically smart enough to say, we can't just offer them this. They won't accept it. They won't accept an Okinawan thing. But if we say, well, here's Okinawan karate, but this is something different. This is Japanese karate. This is your own thing. They could get behind that and go, okay, good, that's what we like. So they changed a bunch, he feels he changed a bunch of stances, a bunch of kicks, a bunch of punches. Not a lot, but enough so that it's different. So they can say, well, yeah, that's Okinawa, this is Japanese. And then they could accept it and start putting it into their school systems. Want to show?
Let's just see. Uema Sensei.
Oh, okay, so Uema Sensei, born in 1945. That's the man we went to see. So that makes him what, 70? 70 now, yeah. His dad, Joki, Uema Joki. Chabana Chosan was his instructor, and Itosu Anko, right above him. So, pretty direct line.
That's Uema Sensei and his father there. In front of him. This is a book that they make, kind of a newsletter that they make every 5 years. This is the 30th anniversary booklet. They make every 5 years or so at their dojo, kind of pictures of the past and so on. And
Kind of like you did with Pastor Brian. Yep.
yeah, he gave us a bunch of copies of them.
So Seth can read them. Maybe she could read it to us. I don't want to talk too much. Oh, geez, I'm already over my 15 minutes. But I wanted to quickly go through. This is Itosu's 10 precepts. So if you turn to the page with the master there, and this is a cool picture. This is the only known photograph of Itosu, and this is what I think of when I think of a karate master. You know what I mean? Little old Japanese man, big mustache and beard, probably looks like he could punch right through you. In 1901, Anko Itosu introduced Okinawa into the Shuri Elementary School system as part of the physical education training program. This became the route by which Okinawan karate began to gain popularity. By 1905, Itosu Sensei was teaching Okinawan karate at the Daiichi College and the Teachers Training College. In 1908, he wrote a letter to the Prefecture Education Department encouraging the introduction of karate to all Okinawan schools, including those on Japanese mainland. So this was, so 1908, he died in 1915, so he's an old man at this point. He's still trying to get it into the school system. Parents and loved ones. It should be used to improve your health and should not be used for your own selfish interests or deliberately hurt someone. That sounds pretty familiar, yeah? The purpose of karate is to train the human body to become as hard as rock and as strong as steel, to effectively develop the hands and feet to be used as spears or arrows, and to develop the strong spirit and the brave heart through continuous practice. If karate was introduced to elementary school, the children would be prepared for military future. So those of you guys who kind of know a little bit about history, a lot of the major famous military leaders thought this way. If our children are taught how to have a military mindset, when they get older, they will make good soldiers. Luckily, we don't live in a world, or in a country, I should say, right now where we're mandatory military involvement. But in Japan and Okinawa, you are. When you're 20 years old, you are in the army. That's all there is to it. So, or at that time. Karate is not learned over a brief period of time. To fully understand karate more fully, to understand karate more fully, one should practice seriously every day for at least 3 or 4 years. In karate, the hands and feet should be trained on the makawara. Everybody know what a makawara is? The little punching board. We have punching bags now and different ways of practicing that. But the idea was you can't just show karate. You have to hit things. You have to make things. You have to bring it to life. It has to be real, or else you're just waving your arms around. And they made a point of that. They made a point of talking about that. In karate, the hands and feet should be trained. I already said that. This is important. This is where it starts getting important, I think. This can be achieved by dropping or relaxing without tension your shoulders. So everybody take a deep breath and concentrate on actively dropping your shoulders. Your neck should look long. They talked about that a lot. Chin up, shoulders down. And now I want you to think about your lat muscles, which are under your armpit, and I want you to tighten up your lat muscles a little bit. So tighten up your lat muscles without tightening up your shoulder muscles. It's hard to do because when I tighten my lats, I have a tendency to want to crunch my shoulders. As soon as I crunch my shoulders, my neck goes away. And now I'm punching only from my arms. Relax your shoulders, tighten up your lats, and now the punch comes from your back instead of from your shoulders. And this is something we're going to talk a lot about today, and they drilled on us. It says, without raising your shoulders, take a hold of your strength. Take a breath. Grip the ground with your feet, which we'll talk about today, and sink into your stance, into your lower abdomen. Karate should be practiced with the proper stances, executed by keeping your back straight, lowering your shoulders, allowing the strength to develop in your legs, positioning your feet firmly and gripping the ground with your toes. We'll talk about that in a minute. And developing key power through your lower abdomen. So you're trying to come from your power low, not high, not up in your shoulders and your chest, which we tend to do as a Western culture because we're strong, you know? We're big and strong people, so we're punching like that. And it's all about dropping it down as low as you can and punching from there. Karate should be practiced repeatedly over a great number of times. The correct explanation of bunkai, the technique should be learned and then properly applied to the given situations. Karate practitioners should decide whether or not the emphasis is purely physical training or the practical use of their body, whether or not they want to be a soldier or a fighter, or if they just want to train to make their body healthy and well. Karate should be practiced with great intensity, and the concept of always being prepared to defend yourself as if you were on the field of battle. Karate should be practiced correctly, develop the proper strength of technique. Do not overexert yourself and do not overdo it. Those who have previously mastered karate have lived on to be an old age. This was achieved through karate because karate helps to develop muscles and bones, helps digesting, and improves circulation of your body, or of your blood. Therefore, karate should be introduced to physical education classes and practice in elementary schools from here on forth. This was his letter to the government, to the educational system, in an effort to try. And, well, I guess it worked. It's in the Okinawan system, and it's in the Japanese system. And I don't know that it'll ever make it into the North American system, but we can make it live on through what we do here. All right, guys, enough sitting. I wanted to get through that because it really talked to the reasons of why we went there. Yes, we went there to train. Yes, it was fun, but I personally went there to learn some history and learn where we came from. And I'm really pleased with what we came back. I'd like to introduce you to the 5 members who went. If you'll stand, please. So Renshi Russell on my left here, obviously from Rocky Mountain House School, made the trip with us, and as you can see, he got a taste of the sword. He loved that, and I think he'll go back. Renshi Chris and I spent a lot of time talking and making notes and really kind of thinking about what we wanted to present today and what we want to bring back. Some of it, it's directly applicable. Some of it's stances and punches, and we can directly apply it. Some of it is stylistic. It's not really applicable because it's very different from what we do. And some of it is philosophy, and we'll talk a little bit more after that. Sensei Axel from Edmonton went, and Sensei Jordy from Edmonton went. These guys, they were, by the end of the trip, Uema Sensei, when we went there the first day, there was kind of a lot of like, yeah, whatever. Guys come to our school all the time, they want to practice karate, whatever. You guys came here, sure, I'll teach you some karate. And they were pretty hard on us the first day, as we are going to be to you today. But I think that was really 2 things. Welcome to Japan, and let's see if these idiots will come back tomorrow. And we did. So then they went, oh, okay, they came back. I guess we can let them train. So then we got to train with them for 2 weeks. And on the last day, they threw us a little party. They brought out some low tables, and we just sat right in the school there and had some pizza and chatted and kind of talked. And by the end, they were like, well, if you guys want, you could leave Sensei Jordy and Sensei Axel here. We'll keep them for you, and we'll keep them in practice with them. So they must have liked us a little, right? Anyways, guys, put your papers away, get a drink of water if you need it. We'll do some jumping jacks, and we'll get right into it. Guys?